What do you got?
Yay, the cosmos.
It is the cosmos, isn't it? I don't just said we're in there.
She got it.
So surprised. Okay, so I am doing a comic book. I try to make this as quick as possible.
No.
I'm doing. Oh, disappeared. Sorry.
Cosmos is mysterious.
Okay. I'm doing a comic book based on Emily Dickinson, and it's called The Slanted Light of Emily Dickinson. So I basically take lines from her poems or her letters and use that as a starting point to kind of make a joke or commentary on how the myth of her life has sort of overtaken, in some cases, her poetry, while also using her poetry in a very funny way. This project is not because I hate Emily Dickinson. Actually, it's from a place of love. So, and I also think she probably had a great sense of humor. So you can kind of get a sense of her personality in her letters, and yeah, and the poems too. But I think there's a lot more revealed in the letters, or a lot more playfulness in the letters. Anyway, this is called Meet the Dickinsons. And it starts off with Edward Dickinson, her father, Emily Norcross Dickinson, her mother, her very good-looking brother, Austin. Then we have Emily herself, and her sister, Lavinia, who she called Vinnie. And at the bottom we have Angie Dickinson. She's an honorary member of the family. Surprised no one's done this yet, or maybe that's coming up, but this is because I could not stop for death. He kindly stopped for me. And it basically is Emily coming home on one of her very rare occasions out. Maybe she's in the garden or something. And there's a note on the door from Death, and it says, "Ms. Dickinson, I stopped for you, but you were not home. I'll come back later." And there's a thought bubble where Emily's saying, "Damn, I've been waiting all my life for this." Another one about death. Surprise, surprise. I felt a funeral in my brain, and mourners to and fro. And inside her head, which would be right about where her very large brain is, we have her coffin and her mourners, and the little preacher man, who is, you can't really read it there, but he's actually reciting an Emily Bronte poem, which was read at her funeral. I cannot remember the name of the poem. But it says, some say Emily was obsessed with death. This is, I'm Nobody, Who Are You? Are You Nobody Too, which you just heard, a very wonderful rendition.
Yeah.
And we see sort of a dotted line outline of Emily, who's barely there, and her dog Carlo, her companion.
I'm with nobody.
With a t-shirt that says and it says, like most creative types, Emily often suffered an identity crisis. Why be a wallflower? Let Arthur Murray teach you to dance well. And actually the line here from her poem is, "Step lightly on this narrow spot." And this was inspired by, this again goes back to how much attention is placed on the myth of Emily Dickinson. And last May, when I was actually working on this project at a residency, I opened the New York Times, and there was this little article that said, "Where a Poet's Feet Trod." And it's an article about how they're doing renovations on her room at the Emily Dickinson Museum. And they found footprints on the wood, on the floor, like worn footprints. And they're using that to try to figure out like what her walking patterns were. So I just imagine
The walking patterns of poets.
I just
Everybody
imagine
wants to know.
They found like her dance steps, and it says here, I gotta read this. Scholars have
Discovered?
Scholars.
Careful inspection.
Okay. I can't read it from there because I forgot my glasses. Scholars have discovered by careful inspection of Emily's foot patterns on the floorboards in her bedroom that she didn't just sit at her desk. Apparently, she enjoyed a cha-cha every day. I'm willing to put money on that. So, okay, here's Emily's Facebook profile. Because every recluse should have a Facebook page. Some of her friends obviously are Austin Dickinson, Vinnie Dickinson, Bird.
You love birds.
Yes, and a character named Judge O. Lord. His real name is Judge Otis Lord, and he was rumored to be one of the possible love interests of Emily, and he was her father's age. He's a friend of her father's. So that was some controversy. But here we have the typical Facebook things like relationship status. It's complicated. Education, Mount Holyoke, sort of. She dropped out after the first year. So, and on the side we have the activity of some of her friends, like Bird likes worms. Here's Emily's OkCupid profile, which I'm sure she would have been on if she had the opportunity. Ethnicity, white as alabaster. Diet, God gave a loaf to every bird, but just a crumb to me. Income, not available. And what's this? Life goals. I dwell in possibility. That's my personal favorite. Also, one of the people she just recently visited was Death 88. Possible match. This is her Instagram page, which I like to call Selfie Reliance. And her handle is Recluse1830. The first panel, we see her dog Carlo in front of the window.